everybody. Welcome back to the Healing Hands Chiropractic Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Dawkins, and I'm joined by the legend, Dr. Tracy Rush, who's with us. Dr. Tracy, how you doing this morning?
It is a beautiful day again in the neighborhood, but things have been really good.
Come on. So for those of you that don't know, we record pretty early. So you can tell Dr. Tracy is okay getting up early. She probably already got hours of morning routine in, and she's solid, ready to go for the day. So glad. Thank you for joining. We were just talking before this about how the last two episodes that we have recorded have been a little controversial. We've gotten comments, good, bad, and ugly. We've gotten everything, and we're just honored for every single listener, and that you guys see this as a conversation, not as this sort of monologue that's getting thrown at you, but inviting you in. We're grateful. We talked 2 episodes ago about debunking myths. That was a huge episode. So if you haven't listened to that one, make sure you go back and listen to that one. And last week we talked about the truth behind health, the fact that you can handle it, and that you should see chiropractic as an amazing solution. Where there's so much information out there. You can be overwhelmed by how many solutions there are out there to health, but to be able to see and understand the truth. And even that we got some interesting comments back from that. All of our amazing patients chiming in and letting folks know about the difference chiropractic has made in their life. But I think today, Dr. Tracy, we get to talk and speak a language that everybody understands, that everybody can relate with, that people will have a lot of trouble disagreeing with when it comes to the effect that stress has on our life. We're going to talk about stress today, and we've gone back to our usual format, Dr. Tracy. So we're going to start getting a little personal. Are you ready for the first 5 questions? That's my question to you to start.
Well, and we think of stress as a negative thing, but it doesn't have to be. Like, we can spin it around. It doesn't always have to be negative on our bodies or on our minds. It could help us grow.
Well, thank you for adding that. And I think also, just in case, and as we kick off question number 1 here, just in case anyone thinks that anyone is void of stress, right? You don't reach a level of maturity where you don't continue to experience stress. That is another myth that we can debunk right now, right, Dr. Tracy? The truth is we all experience stress, and I'm asking you, Dr. Tracy, to set a tone as we jump into this podcast by answering question number 1, which is, if you had to rank the top 3 most stressful things in your life right now, what would they be?
Well, number 1, we're getting personal here, is the death of my mom 5 weeks ago. So that when I was looking up what are our top stressors, death of a loved one is number 1.
Yeah, agreed.
So navigating that, dealing with the emotional highs and lows, little things that set me off. My mom lived with me, for my husband and I, for 3+ years. And just even going into her room right now, I still can't do that without crying. So that's been number 1 stressor. Number 2, and I'm going to put a positive twist on this, is when I'm going to see my grandchild. Like fitting her into our schedule. Our schedules are so busy, and I was with her this last weekend, and I'm like, I think I'm going to see you next weekend, and then I don't know when I'm going to see you. So that's actually a stress, but it's not a heavy weighed down stress. And going into professional, the 3rd stress is I have such a passion for helping people get well. And a stress is when patients don't allow us to help them. When I had a lady last week, she came in, major issues. She had a bad experience with a chiropractor 20+ years ago. But she was going to give chiropractic another chance. And I went over her x-rays, and she said, I can't do it. I can't get an adjustment. I can't do it. And so that was sad to me. I'm going to say it's a stress in the fact that when patients don't get the help they need.
Mm-hmm. Well, you just mentioned 3 massive things. I think we talked about relationships. We talked about time. We talked about expectations. So just in case anyone out there was thinking to themselves, she's going to be coming at us from this pedestal, that the reality is we all deal with stress. And the good news, I think, even though a lot of that seems tough, is that there's a way that we can deal with stress. And so, again, keeping it on this personal note, Dr. Tracy, I'm curious if you could think of a time where you were just overwhelmed with something stressful that either happened to you or just a stressful situation, and how you dealt with it.
Well, the first thing is prayer. I spend time with God. I dive into His Word. I dive into the scriptures. I find something that I can hold on to. That's the first thing I do. Something that'll pop out that I just hold on to. So that's number one. Giving myself grace, giving myself time. I'm a person that's always going, always doing. And so if I don't slow down and stop and smell the roses, get outside, get out there, get to the beach, and give myself personal time, then I'm in trouble. Then I'm in trouble.
Love that. You just kicking it off with prayer. I was sharing with you earlier my sort of revelation with Philippians 4:6, and just looking at what Paul had to say from God. And when we read, sometimes we read the verse, "Do not be anxious," and we think, "Oh no, I'm anxious." I think that we can all stand to read that verse a little bit differently and realize it's saying, "Don't stay anxious." When you're going to experience anxiety, Jesus said, "You're in this world, you'll have trouble," right? You're going to have trouble. You're going to have anxiety. But God did a couple things in His brilliance. One is that He gave us direct connection to Him, that we can bring it all to Him, that we can cast our cares on Him. And the second thing is He put something in our body to help us deal with stress. A lot of us think, I know what God gave me to help move blood through my body. I know what God gave me to help digest my food. I know what God gave me to help, procreate, right? That we have all these systems in our body, but a lot of us don't realize that God actually gave us a system to help us with stress. And that is the nervous system. So we can't wait to talk about that more. But before we go there, you just went a little bit down the trail of daily habits and disciplines. And I love hearing what you personally do. But I want to give a chance for you to unpack that a little bit, to expound. What does the daily routine of someone who says, I want to deal with the stress in my life, I want to deal with the thoughts, toxins, and traumas, I want to deal with the things that are weighing heavy on me. What are the things that I can do daily, Dr. Tracy? What would you recommend to someone who's trying to deal with the stress in their life, things that they can do daily?
Journal. Journal is a great thing. I have a gratitude journal. So right before bed, I write 3 things, 4 things. Last night was 5 things that I'm grateful for during the day or the last couple of days. But I do that pretty much daily. So when you start looking or writing down the gratitudes, your mind shifts. Those weights don't feel so heavy anymore. I got to get in nature. I got to get outside. I got to get my feet in the dirt. I have to. That's my thing. I live 7 miles from the beach. I love getting to the ocean and hearing the waves and smelling it, and that's my place.
Well, you put these disciplines in your life, and you're throwing them out there as great recommendations for anyone that's listening that's dealing with stress. If you're listening to this right now and you do something that works for you, we'd love to hear from you. Make sure you comment below and let us know what you do to deal with stress in your life. You're just recapping a couple of those things. Dr. Tracy, you said prayer. You said getting outside. You said gratitude journaling. There's a difference in just sort of keeping a diary and a gratitude journal. I just want to point that out, that you're choosing with your journaling to focus on what are the good things that I have going in my life. And you talked about how much of a mind shift that can create for you to sort of build the muscle of parasympathetic, right? To build the muscle of calming my spirit and sitting in gratitude. And I love that. So if you're out there and you're listening, what do you do that works well? We want to know. Comment below. But I want to address a common stress that we have, that's sort of like something that we all deal with, and that is the balance, right? We're constantly trying to balance. Some of us are professional life. Maybe it's your finances. Maybe it's you feel like you need rest. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's a side hustle that you've added on to your life. All these things are truly so common. Dr. Tracy, I'm curious for you, who has been incredibly successful, I would say, in every aspect of your life. You've been successful professionally. You have an amazing family. You seem to have your personal life figured out. How do you balance the stress of all those things in your life?
I have to laugh. Ha ha ha. I seem like I balance it out. Ha 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 ha. Seem is a big word. um, I'm about lists. I have to have a list. I have to create, I have to see it. I'm a visual person. I'm not auditory. I'm a visual person. So I have to see it written down. So balancing it out, I'll have my to-do list. This is what I have to take care of, both professionally and personally, on that list. And then keeping it separate, it's like, it melds. I mean, both my husband and I are chiropractors. We come home, we talk about work. You're not supposed to do that. When you come home, you're supposed to be okay, all about you and me and life. It doesn't always work that way. So that's why I laugh. It seems like it doesn't always happen that way.
Well, thank you again for being human and being vulnerable. I think our listeners need to hear that. And the truth is, what I know about you is, even if you do get off kilter, you're deviating slightly one way or another, that you have a true north and you keep fighting to be heading in that direction. So that's something any of our listeners can take away, is we're all going to veer left or right at different points in our life, maybe even daily, but keep that true north and continue to fight for your priorities and what's important to you. It's just one more question, Dr. Tracy, before we get into the science of stress, because I'm ready to geek out. I'm ready to geek out when we talk about stress. But surely you can think back to a point in your life where maybe stress caused a change in your health or your behavior, that it had a negative effect on your life, to the point where it was notable. Maybe it was just seen by you, but maybe people around you saw it. Maybe I'm fishing here to see if that's true. But has that ever happened to you? And then how did you deal with it? How did you address it?
So obviously what I'm going through right now with the death of my mom and dealing with that, but I go back to when we first moved here and we were starting to open up the practice. We had two little ones. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and we moved to the new area from South Carolina to Maryland. In the first 30 days we lived here, it rained 28 days out of the first 30. So
If
I'm
that
like,
counted the days.
yes, because it was horrible. I'm sunny South Carolina to cold, wintry Maryland. And then starting to get a practice going. And stress shows up in different ways. For me, I was angry. I was angry all the time. It wasn't like I was depressed, or I was angry. I thought everything was attacking me, and I was angry about it. So obviously chiropractic. I got adjusted to calm down the nervous system. I know we're going to get into the science of that. But I had to seek counseling. I had to talk to somebody. There was a time period when I had to take medication. And I'm not into the medication, but there was a time that I had to take an antidepressant to help reset the chemistry of my body again.
Wow, that is beyond. I'm beyond grateful right now for your vulnerability, and I think that it's interesting how God can take our misery sometimes and make it our ministry, right? So you have an amazing opportunity, having experienced just about everything that any of your patients walking through the door have experienced, but you now have a solution, a way to help them, and I'm grateful for that, for this conversation. So thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, she's human. She's human, but she's also an amazing subject matter expert when it comes to stress. And so we're going to talk about stress, because we've connected, right? But now it's time to start talking about the solution. And it's so important for us to be educating you on not just what the problem is, but what is the solution. So we're going to go up to 30,000 feet, Dr. Tracy, and work our way down, starting with this first question here, which is that we know the stress comes in many forms, right? But enlighten us as to the primary ways our bodies experience stress on a regular basis. How would you boil down all stresses so that we can understand what we experience on a daily basis?
Boil it down
Boil it
so
down.
we can understand. Again, I keep laughing at this. Um, so physically, the things we'll experience is heart palpitations. Our heart will start beating faster. Our digestive system will start going crazy. Either we're like upset and we don't want to eat, or we eat more. Our minds are just always going. We lack sleep, or we sleep too much. There's such a wide range that can happen physically to our bodies. But it all, like you said, it all starts with that nervous system that starts the whole process. We see something that is a stressful situation and our chemistry changes, and that affects our organs, and it's just this snowball effect that starts happening.
So that is a very quick explanation of stress, and thankfully we have a lot more, because I'm sure if you're like me, you're going, now I'm intrigued. So that question really kind of got me hooked. Like, I want to know more. So let's talk about, you mentioned earlier that not all stress is bad. I think most of us intuitively, when we think about stress, just based on our own experiences, it's hard for us to see stress as good. But in general, so I appreciate you saying that. So in general, when we think about stress, it has an effect on our bodies. But what is it about stress that causes our bodies to move towards? And I wrote it this way: dis-ease. Basically, what is it about stress that causes our bodies to get out of whack? Right? What is it about stress that changes us negatively most of the time?
Well, again, it's that chemical reaction that the body starts changing, and it's our response. Our body wants to protect itself. It's fight or flight. We've heard that growing up, fight or flight. A bear's chasing after you. You're not going to poop. The blood's going to rush to your heart, to your extremities to run, into your muscles, to create more oxygen so you can run away from that bear. But what happens is, if we've been in it long term, if you're under stress long term, short term is okay. It's that long term where our body starts burning out. We have our fuel here and we've dipped down, and then we can't get back up again, and then we dip down and then we can't get back up again, and you're not recovering. You're in this hamster wheel that you're just not recovering, and you feel like, gosh, I'm so tired. I can't seem to get going. And I'll be honest, I felt that way this first 6 months of this year. I said, I feel like Fred Flintstone. He's in the car, and the feet are going, but the car's not going anywhere. I just feel like I'm going, but I'm not getting anywhere, because there was so much happening with my mom and things in the house and my granddaughter coming and so many things happening. And I went, whew, wow.
So that's a great segue into, as we talk about the danger of stress, right? You just talked about when we don't deal with it, here are the things that manifest. And I almost want to say, what then, right? Because I think what a lot of us can relate to is the fact that we have stress that we haven't dealt with, right? But what I think a lot of us the connections that we're not making is, well, then, people in their own minds, and I know plenty of people that would say, I've been stressed for 40 years. I just deal with it, right? I've been stressed for 40 years. I just put up with it. I just tolerate it. But you do also see all of these health issues manifest because of undealt with stress. So walk me through the progression of, okay, I didn't deal with the stress that happened to me. Maybe it was in a moment, maybe it was a car accident, maybe it was over time, maybe it was the way I think, what I ate, the environmental stress, all that stress. I just tolerated it. What is the danger of just continuing to tolerate stress, and how does that manifest in the form of health issues, disease, that sort of thing?
So blood pressure. Blood pressure is the thing that pops in my head, that the blood pressure is going to increase because the heart rate has increased, and chemically, emotionally, physically, when it's not dealt with. So that's going to show up as dis-ease. There's going to be an imbalance. I mean, just throughout the body. I mean, it can manifest anywhere. It can manifest as cancer. And people are like, really? And I'm like, well, yeah, because cancer cells, we have cancer cells in our body all the time, but it's our immune system that's always fighting them and eating them and eliminating them. It's when the cancer cells don't have that immune system getting rid of them, or, yep, an immune system, that they start clumping together and creating something bigger. So that's cancer. So
Wow.
something happened that started that process. So we have to have our checks and balances. We don't allow ourselves to heal. We don't.
We're going to talk about, I feel like there's something I want to connect there between stress and then you just said cancer. I want to connect that in a few questions, but before we get there, because I know you know what you're talking about, but just so our listeners know, you have you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of patients that walk through your door that are coming in that didn't deal with the stress that finally realized, okay, I'm just going to see if chiropractic can make a difference, right? Maybe some of them are well versed in chiropractic. Maybe many of them they're just. I'm just going to see what happens. So talk to me about the patients that walk through your door, and what would you say is the biggest, or are the biggest few maybe stressors that your patients deal with daily that you're helping them with?
So majority of coming in because of pain. I mean, that's pain, as we talked about previously. The red light of our car is the thing that says, hey, you need to do something. But we don't realize the underlying thing. So I feel like I'm an investigator, that I'm a detective, and I got to get my detective hat on, and getting to the cause. The why did this happen? How did this happen? Because once we have that cause, then we can work on the solution. Now, does everybody get healed? No, not everyone gets healed. And that's God. That's not me saying, oh, why didn't this person heal? Why did this person heal? But we are, through chiropractic and through the nutritional portion, we are helping your body adapt to the stressors, manage them on a better scale.
Mm.
A lot of things we get from our patients is I'm calmer. Things happen, but I don't react the same way or respond the same way when there's stress. So I'm sleeping better. My body is moving better, obviously through chiropractic, but the nervous system is calmer and easily can adapt better.
Well, one thing I would say I've learned just in our conversation and in my experience with chiropractic is when you're under care with chiropractic, one thing that is universally true is that you grow in a confidence in the systems that God has put in your body, to trust them. So I think before you really understand how magnificent the body really is, it's hard to wrap your brain around what it can do, especially when you face adversity or stress. A lot of us, we live worried because we don't understand the power of the body that God has given us, as opposed to how could we trust our body to do what it does best and understand the same power that made the body has the power to heal the body, and that power is in every single one of us. So you get to, like, we've heard it said, that your business is really a platform for your message, right? That you take that 9 to 5, as people would see it, as not the most important thing you do as a just, even though that is absolutely critical. But it is to educate, is to make sure people understand. And so I know that patients at Healing Hands Chiropractic can attest the fact that they are growing in confidence and trusting their body to do what it was made to do. And all you're doing essentially is what we're about to talk about, is you're going in and removing anything that's interfering from the body to be able to do what it was made to do. So let's connect some dots here, because Dr. Tracy, you said we went from stress to cancer. And I know for a lot of our listeners, that is a eye-opening thing. I expect a few comments here, listeners, right? But I want to connect some dots to go from stress to understanding what the nervous system was designed to do, what your relationship as a chiropractor is with the nervous system, and the doors that opens to help remove interference so the body can do things like fend off, like strengthen the immune system, like strengthen the systems that God's put in your body through communication between brain and body. And I don't want to go too far because this is a question I have for you, Dr. Tracy, but I said I want to geek out about it. So take me on that journey. This is not a written question, Dr. Tracy, but take me on that journey from the moment they walk into your door, what it is that you do and how that actually helps the body begin to do what it was designed to do. Is that a big question or what? Can you
It's a
do
big
that?
question. So obviously we're sitting down and finding a consultation. We're finding out what's going on, but not just, oh, I have neck pain, I have back pain. It's, all right, how is this affecting your daily life? How's it affecting your organs? Like you said, putting the dots together, connecting, okay, if you've got lower back pain, I have so many gentlemen that have prostate issues. Well, lower back nerves, go to the prostate. So if there's issues here, that communication's not happening correctly here. So, but they don't put those dots together until we show them on the charts and say, hey, here's your lower back pain. But what concerns me more is where those nerves go internally. So then the communication's not happening correctly. That goes up to the brain and back down. So then cells throughout our body aren't going to communicate correctly. And that's where we get exposed. I mean, again, we're exposed to toxins all day long. And then our body immune system can't handle it anymore. It gets overwhelmed and it starts breaking down. And then cells start clumping together. So that's how I get to the cancer portion, because those cells start clumping together and it just can't fight it. And the body goes, I'm done. And then you don't realize this is happening. Nobody knows they have a subluxation because it doesn't necessarily cause pain.
Yeah, at least not at first, right? Until it manifests into wherever there's a blockage in the nervous system to get to that particular organ or tissue. Yeah, that is. I could talk about that all day. That is a fascinating topic. I think if more people understood the power of the nervous system, what it does for the body, and the danger of when it's not operating at 100%, there would be so many. I don't want to get too far on my tangent here, but just that if people could just take that, what you just said, Dr. Tracy, if they could just take that away from this conversation, we change the world. So that's incredible. I do want to ask, in your practice, right, in your experience, how do chiropractic patients typically respond to treatment? You mentioned earlier, not everybody, gets healed. And I think that's where it's easy for me, maybe from this particular side of this conversation, to say, hey, reminder, chiropractic patients, chiropractic is a done with you model. It is not a done for you model, that we all have homework that we go in and we get adjusted. That is not the be all end all, that we also have a responsibility to go home and make sure that when we talk about thoughts, toxins, and traumas, we talk about our stressful life, that we're doing what we can to mitigate stress, right? That we have our own homework to do when it comes to chiropractic. The one thing that we can't do, we've got to go see Dr. Tracy. We've got to make sure that interference is removed so that we have an adjustment, and we work in our homework to hold our adjustment for longer periods of time, right? How do patients typically respond to treatment in terms of stress relief and overall well-being? You mentioned not everybody gets healed, but I want to give you a chance to testify to Healing Hands Chiropractic.
So I mentioned it that people will comment on sleeping better, being calmer, and enjoying life, quality of life, because that's what it comes down to, is our quality of life. Where do we sit in this universe? Where do we sit in this world? And our purpose. And it's being able to help people express what God has intended for them. So we get those comments, we get those success stories. But being healed, I'm going to say, is a journey. It's not one-time thing. We're here, we'll never have to go back to that. No, I mean, we're always changing, we're always adapting. So it's a journey. Do we arrive at it? Some people do, some people don't. But guess what? In the end, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. And we're not going to live forever. But we want that quality of life and have that ease on our bodies as we journey through this life.
Yeah, so you don't just want to live a long life span. You want a long health span, and I think what we're talking about right now is how critical it is that you address stress, that you make sure that you're mitigating it in your life, and you're doing what you can to remove the interference the stress causes on your body so that you can enjoy your life. Oh, who doesn't want to sleep one more hour a night? Who doesn't want to live one less hour of stressful day? I mean, this is what we're talking about. So we're not gonna spend too much more time geeking out. We're gonna jump into the hot seat, Dr. Tracy, and we're just gonna get really practical when we talk about your day, and in particular your day, Dr. Tracy, and what you're doing to deal with stress. So these are 5 quick questions, and then we're out, listeners. You guys rock. Thank you for listening so far. Dr. Tracy, we've answered this before, but what is your favorite way to unwind after a long, stressful day? In particular, a long, stressful day. I don't want to say like, oh, every night, but like when it's been a day, how does Dr. Tracy unwind?
Um, I get outside again. If I can get to the beach and listen to the ocean, that is one thing. Yoga, stretching, and like I said, journaling. Yeah.
Mm. What I respect, and since we're not afraid to be real on this podcast, is you didn't talk about things that you put in your body to manipulate what's going on inside. You talked about things that anyone can do for free. Get outside, breathe in the fresh air, listen to what's going on in nature, and watch how that little bit of stillness can set you free from a whole lot of stress. Love it. All right, if we had to point to Disney characters, I told you, hot seat. We're pointing to Disney characters. We want to set people up. Be like blank. Don't be like blank. Who are the Disney characters that come to your mind, Dr. Tracy?
So there were a couple last night, and I don't know the names of some of them, but what came to mind was Lion King. So Pumbaa, Hakuna Matata.
Yes.
Yes, there's no worries. So that's who you want to be like. Da, 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 da. But and then I thought of the bird that's in Aladdin. And
Oh,
that's talking to Jafar. And he's stressful and he's seeing all the negative. I don't know the name of the bird. So if
it's
you know the
it's
name of the bird,
name.
put that in the comment.
I think it's Iago. But
Iago, yes.
if you can verify that, if someone out there can verify that, please comment below and let us know. Also, if you can spell that, I got mad respect for you. So I want to say it was Jafar and Iago was the bird with the crackers. Yes. Oh, that's great. So be like Pumbaa. Don't be like Iago. You heard it here first. That's great. All right, number 3. For any of our listeners that might say, if I could only get a week off and head to the Bahamas, but I just can't ever seem to break away, what advice would you give that person to rid themselves of all ill-causing effects of stress when it seems like there's never enough time? That is loaded, but I'm going to let you answer that one.
So this one I thought of, you got to take little breaks. You typically your job, you acquire sick time, leave time. Take a long weekend just for you. For me, I get energized by being by myself. Just quiet, and that's how I energize. I'm an introvert. Wow,
Mm.
surprise! I'm an introvert. But taking that creating your own oasis. And I thought about this during COVID. We didn't go anywhere. And it was my birthday week, and we had already had planned on taking off that week, and we were supposed to go to Cancun. And I know this is supposed to be short, but we created Cancun in our house. We got
Ooh.
decorations from the Dollar Tree, and we decorated the house, and we had music playing, island music playing on the TV, and we created our own Cancun within our home that week.
That is amazing. Oh, I love it. All right, worst advice you ever received when it came to dealing with stress. What was it?
Get over it. Just, it's in your head and get over it. Just move on. Doesn't always work that way.
Why would you say that's bad advice? I'm just curious because I know that we got some folks out there that probably hang on to that when it comes to dealing with stress. Why is that a bad idea? Why is that bad advice?
Because because we're really not dealing with it. We're really not. It's still in there, and we're pushing it down. We're not getting it out. It's like you eat something bad. Do you want it to stay in your system, poisoning you? You want to poop it out or throw it out? You got to get it out of you. Don't let it sit in there. Just don't get over it. You gotta purge it.
There you go. Last question. If you had an extra day, an extra hour every single day to help you de-stress, what would you do with it?
Go to the beach. Go to the beach. Some people are mountains, some people are beach. I'm beach. I go to the beach.
Yeah, it's funny is I was mountains. I was 100% mountains, and I still love the mountains. But life took us to the beach, and I fell in love. And so it's such a special place. For those of you that don't live near the beach, maybe you cut the TV on to a beach scene with some waves crashing. You create that Cancun in your own home. That's what you do. That's such a great idea, Dr. Tracy. Well, thank you so much. Listen, I feel de-stressed just talking about these solutions, and hopefully this is helpful to our listeners. If you're listening, last thing I'm going to say, if you're listening to this and you don't live in the Berlin, Maryland area, maybe you're listening to this from another part of the country or the world. We want to know because we're intrigued. We love the idea of being able to interact with every single listener. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't listened to the last few episodes, go back, do yourself a favor, talk about some of the lies that we believe when it comes to our health, the truth behind health, and how chiropractic should be an absolute solution in your life. And then, of course, we're going to keep the conversation going. So, Dr. Tracy, thank you for your time. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Healing Hands Chiropractic Podcast.
Blessings.
Take care.